Hi everyone, this is Katie Dinkle, and this is my presentation for Module 5, Understanding My Community. And my community is Tecumseh North Elementary in the Shawnee Heights School District in Tecumseh, Kansas. So Shawnee Heights was established basically for rural communities. So in the 1950s with the suburban movement, there were these rural communities in what is now Shawnee Heights of Tecumseh, Richland, and Barryton. And they each had a school, a K through 8 school, and then they would all funnel into Highland Park High School. But in 1960, Highland Park was annexed to Topeka Public Schools. And so that left what is now Shawnee Heights with a need for a high school. And so in 1962, that's what happened. Shawnee Heights High School was opened, and the rest is kind of history. So now we're still composed of those same geographic locations, but we now have 4 elementary schools, a middle school, and a high school that make up our district. So within our community and our school, some different customs and traditions. The Tecumseh United Methodist Church Fall Festival is a big one. They block the main drag through the street, which is, not a lengthy street by any means, but they block it off and they bring in bouncy houses and pony rides and just all sorts of fun stuff for the community. And it's right catty corner from our school, so there's a lot of overlap between people who attend that church and who also are students or family members in our school. And so it's a great community event for all. We also have our sneak peek night, and that's just specifically at our school the night before school starts, and kiddos can bring in their school supplies and meet their teacher. And it's pretty informal, but it's largely attended. We're at 96% participation for that event. So obviously it's important to our parents and our students, but also our teachers. We also have our own fall carnival that's put on by our PTO, it's a similar thing to the United Methodist Church, but you've got the typical carnival games. So they set up, Plinko and there's a fishing game that's coming to mind, and the cakewalk, and just all those traditional games. But then they also bring in helping hands, and they'll bring in the Humane Society, and they'll bring in some animals, and the fire trucks come, and kids can do a little tour of the fire trucks. So just lots of different fun activities for families to come out and just kind of build community within our school. And then we also have what's called Pride, and that's just within the school day. Each faculty or staff member is assigned 15 students, and that's their Pride. And the Pride never changes. So a student will have the same Pride from kindergarten through 6th grade. But it's just an opportunity to kind of build those connections and that home court advantage, and just build positive relationships within our school. And then lastly, a tradition in our school that's a pretty big deal is our Christmas sing-along. So Santa comes and he brings candy canes the day before break, and then our music teacher facilitates a sing-along, and we sing Christmas carols and do the Jingle Bell Rock, and we have a choreographed dance for that as well. So that's a fun tradition in our school community. So just looking at some population characteristics of the area, not all of our students come from a Tecumseh, Kansas address, and so that's why I included both Tecumseh and Topeka, because you can see Tecumseh is only 7,822, but Topeka obviously is significantly larger population, and a lot of our kiddos, their home address is actually within Topeka city limits. Our district population is roughly 18,000, so that kind of shows you that we've got some different communities making up our school district. USD 450 enrollment is at 3,531, and then Tecumseh North enrollment is at 455. And then just breaking that down demographically, we're at 64.8% white students, 21% Hispanic, and 7% 2 or more races. We're also a Title I school, so that kind of shows you just financially, economically, kind of some different information for our school that we'll talk about later on. Definitely a blue-collar community. A lot of hard-earned dollars, working in construction, and a lot of linemen, and a lot of our parents are linemen. industry jobs. We'll kind of talk about that later as well, but just big picture, we're a blue-collar district, a lot of hardworking people getting their hands dirty, and also two-income households where not a lot of stay-at-home mamas in our district. So people who are working and they need those two incomes to make ends meet, especially at Tecumseh North. I know that's usually the situation. College education, Tecumseh's at 37% and Topeka's at 31%, so not a huge gap there. Just some different communication channels, obviously radio, TV. The ones on the right-hand side, I would say, are the most prominent for how our parents get their information. Facebook, Twitter. We have district Facebook, school Facebook, same thing with Twitter. And then we also have a district app. And those are just the different communication tools that are at people's fingertips. And so I think that's why they're the most prominently used. Some different groups, the Tecumseh Kiwanis Club, Tecumseh United Methodist Church is who I mentioned before, and that's what's pictured down in the bottom right-hand corner. Shawnee Heights Fire District, obviously our PTO. Boys and Girls Club of Topeka. We do have a Boys and Girls Club at our school, before and after school care, and then also a summer program, so they have a strong presence in our community. And then Big Brothers Big Sisters. We've got a handful of kiddos that are within our building that are impacted by that organization as well. Leadership within Topeka, Greater Topeka Chamber of Commerce, Mayor, City Council, who are all doing great things, by the way. There's definitely an initiative to kind of clean up and amp up downtown and bring in some different businesses and just kind of target that young adult, young professional population and trying to get those young professionals to not only work in Topeka, but also live in Topeka. So there's a lot of pretty neat things being done down in that area. And then within the district, you've got school board, superintendent, building principals, kind of the typical hierarchy. But then I also wanted to mention our foundation, just because they have such a significant role in supporting teachers and providing financial assistance, grants, and different instructional resources for teachers, which is certainly makes a positive impact in our community. So those leaders' characteristics, certainly pride in Shawnee Heights. Very proud to come from Shawnee Heights, proud to send their kids to Shawnee Heights, very family-oriented. A lot of people that'll say, my kids went here, and now their kids are going here, or my parents graduated from here. So a lot of generations that go through our doors at Shawnee Heights and Tecumseh North, so that's pretty cool. And then, like I talked about before, just prioritizing getting resources for teachers and then always looking to improve. So I included a picture here of our school. Now, this was a capital outlay project, so granted that comes from federal funds, but this was a renovation that they did to our entryway, our main foyer. And so just to show that not only instructionally and within the walls of the school are we trying to improve and do what's best for our kids, but wanting to make sure that, physically, infrastructurally, we're staying up to date and making sure we're still presentable and welcoming to our families and to the community. Economic conditions, so median household incomes in Tecumseh is $74,669, but in Topeka it's significantly lower at $44,879. And so I think kind of averaging those out or even weighing on the Topeka side is a more accurate representation of where our families stand at Tecumseh North. A lot of industrial employers. I put a picture of Reese's on here because that's one that employs a lot of our families, a lot of our parents. It's just a food service company, and they recently built a second location right across the street from their original location. And so that definitely opened up a lot of jobs and different opportunities. But then all of this kind of leads into where our families stand financially, and that's we are a 56% free and reduced lunch school. Political structure. So obviously you start with the state legislature, which the last couple of years we've heard a lot about as we're sitting in June waiting on decisions to be made as far as funding goes. and then kind of steps down into the Kansas State Department, who makes decisions with curriculum and standards and implementing all of that. And then school board superintendent and building principals to make sure that that's all implemented within the district and at the building level. Social tensions, just kind of the basics, economic differences. Every district's going to have them. Every school's going to have them. But I did just want to mention, there's definitely social status differences among the schools. And I won't mention specifically, but there's just kind of the common perception that there's one school that kind of has more of the higher socioeconomic status than the others. Tecumseh North, Tecumseh South are Title I schools, so that's just a very matter of fact that we have more at-risk students, and our demographics obviously are different than that of the other two. And then also just a secondary level drug concern / awareness, something they're definitely trying to stay on top of, and there have been new policies recently that have been adapted and implemented where surprise drug tests can be performed unless a parent opts their child out. So just definitely wanting to stay on top of that and at the secondary level, which is kind of removed from me, being a first grade teacher, but it's just something that the district's certainly aware of. Here's a couple extra sources of information, just our district website and then our school Facebook page. Multicultural issues. So we certainly have a growing ELL population, and there's a strong initiative from central office within our district to get your ELL endorsement, and they'll pay for it, in fact. So obviously wanting to make sure that we're prepared and instructionally ready to meet the needs of those learners. As far as I'm concerned, very limited gang activity. Not to my knowledge is that a major issue in our district. And then kind of limited racial and ethnic diversity. Like I said before, we're 60% white students in our school. And so, not a significant amount of multicultural or diversity issues just because we're not a very diverse school. And that also stands for our staff, predominantly white school community. So. And then lastly, measuring public opinion. So obviously our school board meetings are open to the public with the exception of, executive session. Anybody can go, very much open to public opinion and just seeing what the community needs are, seeing how people feel. Anytime it involves money, they are always reaching out to parents and site councils and PTOs and different people like that just to see what the opinion is and to see what people prefer. And so an example I put on here, recently a survey just went out regarding title funds. So it was basically a ranking. And so they listed like 10 different items, and then they had you circle who you represented. So are you a parent, a teacher, a site council member, whoever, and then you had to rank these different items from 1 being the most important all the way down to 10 being the least important. And so obviously it shows that we're evaluating different ways to spend our title funds and wanting to get the public opinion and perception of what's important to our community. Where do people want our money to go? So I thought that was a really great example of just measuring that public opinion. So that is all I have in regards to just knowing our community and the factual information, but then also just the personal information and getting to know the school and the district and the people who live in the surrounding area. So thank you for watching and have a great rest of your week.